Check 1 2. Check 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 check. Every day this week. Well, good morning. I keep forgetting to Put my mic up. Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And we've received our first virtual wave with the comment, excited to hear from Phil this morning. Me too, because our guest is Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. He'll be joining us in just a little bit. So it's not too late to get your questions in, by the way, but we are going to be talking about the New York State budget extensively. So that's coming up here in just a little bit. I do have a little bit of housekeeping as well to get to. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to my friends Rita and Mike at the Painted Post Food Pantry. They invited me for a tour of the food pantry, and it's amazing what they can accomplish with what they have, and it gives me a prime opportunity. First of all, to say thank you for the tour. I really enjoyed it, but also to tell you about their nutrition workshop, which is the fourth Wednesday of every month at 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Listen to this. All workshops include a 35 to 40-minute lesson, a recipe demonstration with samples, and a free kitchen tool for every participant. Pretty nice deal. Lessons, recipes, and kitchen tools are different every time. So it's the fourth Wednesday of every month from 10:30 to 11:30. The next upcoming nutrition workshop, February 28th. So mark your calendars. And that's at United Church of Painted Post, 201 North Hamilton Street in Painted Post. So thank you again to Rita and Mike for the tour yesterday. Okay, a couple quick things to get to before we take our first break. There's a really good piece by Carol Markowitz at the New York Post. I know we've talked about this a lot this week, and it is a little bit New York City-centric, but it isn't at the same time because of bail reform. Carol says, deport New York City's cop-beating migrants if we can find them after they were let loose on no bail. And did you see, and the guy's name, I guess, is Joan Boda, 22 years old, and he's in this country illegally. He was one of the migrants involved with beating up the cop. And then as he was leaving, with no bail, mind you, he, let's just say, gestured in an offensive fashion to the media that was waiting for his release. And as Carol says, this is New York in 2024. Now, she calls out Hochul, saying, when asked, Hochul took a bold stance saying, quote, I think that's actually something that we should be looking at, meaning the deportation. Wow, such leadership. Now, this is an important point and why I bring it up. You may not have heard this by now. Sources have told the New York Post and others that 4 of the migrants have cut loose without bail, and they might have hopped on a bus bound for California on Wednesday. Shocker. People adept at breaking the law continue to break the law. And she says, even in the bad old days of New York, well, which could be 2024, assaulting a cop wasn't a consequence-free crime. Add New York's absurd no-bail laws, which set free violent offenders like Boda, who have no ties to the community and no permanent address, and you have a recipe for chaos. What are the chances this Boda reappears in court? I'll take money line on that. How much more will New Yorkers accept? The issue is Democrats have long pretended our porous border isn't a problem, and you're a racist and xenophobe for noticing it might be. Democrats like Hochul and Adams have to dance around the problem lest they be called the same names. And for New Yorkers, well, New Yorkers get the same gesture that Boda gave the media. So I thought that was a really good piece. We kind of paraphrased it. So if you'd like to find it, it's at the New York Post. And it's entitled, Deport New York City's Cop-Beating Migrants if we can find them after they were let loose on no bail. We got a couple other quick things we're going to try to catch up on before the Assemblyman joins us. But first, we've got to take our very first break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
kings of the lanes lay everything on the line for a major.
There it is! Cuomo adds to his legacy! Wow!
The U.S. Open Finals, Sunday at 3:30 Eastern on Fox.
Top-ranked UConn takes on St. John's.
What a game!
Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Fox.
Our beautiful view of Market Street. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In just moments, we'll be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Now, I mentioned that piece just a moment ago by Carol Markowitz. Now, Governor Hochul has taken a stronger stance since her original question on deporting the cop-beating migrants. Now she is talking tough. Again, she must have seen the polls that show that illegal immigration is number one concern for voters. She said, get them all and send them back. You don't touch our police officers. You don't touch anybody. Taking a tough line on that. We'll see. It's like Carol Markowitz said. Are we going to be able to find them? They were released on no bail, and they have no real permanent home. The sources are saying that, 4 hopped on a bus to go to California already. So I think it's easy to talk tough now. Instead of saying deport them, maybe say, hey, let's look at our bail reform laws. Let's start there. I also wanted, since we're talking New York issues, and I probably won't have a chance to bring this up with Assemblyman Palmisano unless it's in a kind of a sideway conversation, but Errol Lewis says Andrew Cuomo wants redemption, and he wants to win an election. And the crux of this argument is that there wasn't a lot of details in that report that was released between the Federal Justice Department and the administration of Governor Hochul. The statement approved by the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department alleges that Cuomo sexually harassed 13 state employees, ran an office that tolerated a hostile work environment, and retaliated against workers who complained about it, all in violation of federal civil rights laws. But what Errol Lewis says is there wasn't a lot of information in there, and he never really had a quote-unquote trial. So his argument is a run for office would allow Cuomo to address lingering questions about harassment claims and the fairness of investigations in union halls, living rooms, subway stops, and street corners, rather than the kangaroo court of social media. He might meet the same fate as his predecessor and nemesis, Eliot Spitzer, who quit as governor in a prostitution scandal and was rejected by voters when he ran for city comptroller in 2013. Or he might discover that despite all the negative press and one-sided reports, some subset, listen to this, some subset of New Yorkers are ready for Cuomo 2.0. That's a very city-esque article. So do you believe, I'll pose the question to you, do you believe that if you were to run it, maybe it's not for governor again, maybe it's against Mayor Adams in New York City, would he win? DeRosa, his right-hand person, was a huge favorite for basically any office she wanted to run for, according to polls, and of course it's based on New York City. So saying, well, maybe we didn't like Cuomo and his administration, but let's take people from his administration and put them in positions of power. It's very, well, I think that shows you a little bit in a nutshell with what we're dealing with when we talk about upstate votes versus downstate votes and why it's such an uphill battle for conservatives and for Republicans to win statewide races. Very difficult. So I thought that was interesting. Andrew Cuomo wants redemption, and he wants to win an election. I'm going fast this morning. We're jumping all around, but I don't want to miss some of these stories before Phil comes in. Van Jones says it's a big problem for Biden with young voters because I didn't realize this. Young voters who, disturbingly, most likely because of their college education and what they've been taught in academia, are not fans of Israel or not fans of our support of Israel. And Jones says it's a big problem for him right now, that the idea is that Biden can't be trusted. There are 4 syllables that are aimed at him. Genocide Joe. That is becoming something you're hearing from the younger voters in the Arab American community. I think he can turn it around, but you've got to be honest right now. You've got disappointment in the base with how he's handling the war in Gaza. Now, the reality is Joe Biden is deep ties and friendship in the Muslim Arab community. He can get back there, but he's got his work cut out for him right now. I did not realize that some were calling him Genocide Joe. We've got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer.
How do I know if I have a case?
Call 844-292-6222 and consult with one of our attorneys to find out if the products you used are part of the lawsuit. Your eligibility will also depend on how often you use these hair products and your specific cancer diagnosis. If you regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. Call 844-292-6222.
How much will it cost to talk to an attorney?
There is no fee unless we win your case. Call 844-292-6222 for your free case review.
The average cost of hearing aids is nearly $5,000. But now you can buy a full pair of rechargeable, wireless, nearly invisible, easy to use, very comfortable hearing devices for only $99. $99 for a full pair? Yes, but only from Audion. Audion Adams are trusted by over 300,000 customers nationwide.
My Audion really have been a godsend to me.
Audion Adams are tiny, but powerful and nearly invisible.
It's small, it's easy to use.
Audion Adams can be sold over the phone today without having to see a doctor or audiologist. Order your full pair of high-quality hearing devices for only $99 right over the phone. Call
1-800-371-8993. 1-800-371-8993. 1-800-371-8993.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We've got Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in the studio. But before, I just want to mention real quick, Elmira Impact Hockey, our friends that were ringing the bell for us during the Salvation Army Telethon, they're taking on Utica tonight at the First Arena, 7 o'clock. So get your tickets and don't miss that. I wanted to mention that. Hey, good morning, Phil.
Morning, Frank. Good to be with you again.
Yeah, it's great to be with you because we've got so much to cover. Let's just start right from the beginning. Could you give us an overview of the budget as you see it?
Oh, yeah. Since I've been on last, the governor presented her executive state budget.
We've had a few conversations about it.
Yes, we have. It started the process, and before I get into details, the legislature has started their budget hearings to evaluate the executive budget, to question different departments like the transportation commissioner, MTA. We've had corrections commissioner and public safety. So we're getting through different parts of the budget to examine the question. But really, the top line is that the governor has proposed, in my opinion, and a number of my colleagues, another record level of spending, $233 billion, $4 billion more than last year. I'm just very concerned about this uncontrolled spending and this unsustainable path that we're on. If you look at just since 2018, when one party control took over in Albany, our executive budget has increased by $60 billion, or 40%. I mean, that's a significant amount of money spending.
And they almost act like this is frugal.
Well, sometimes they think it's their money. They think it's the taxpayer money.
Well, that's
we
for
can't
sure.
continue on this pathway. The state government needs to strap up, take charge of theirs and control their spending. Families and businesses are doing that. Why not the state government? But then when you look at her budget, budget is about priorities. There's enough money to make sure if we're taking care of the proper priorities. But what are those priorities? What is Governor Hochul's priorities? $2.4 billion for New York City for the illegal migrants that are here and to take care of them. $700 million continuation of the Hollywood film tax credit to benefit the Hollywood elites. But yet in her budget, she proposes cuts to schools. I mean, more than half of my school districts would receive a cut, and significant cuts. Some as high as 30%, 16%, 12%. She's proposing cutting the CHIPS program, which is vitally important for our local communities like Corning and everyone, because it benefits every municipality.
We just heard from Hornell Mayor John Buckley about it. He's outraged.
Oh yeah, he texted me about it, and we were talking, and he's like, he's going up to NICOM this week. He was going to bring that up. So that's a big. I mean, she's talking about a $60 million cut to the CHIPS program. That's a 10% of their. That's a 10% cut for every municipality. That's bad.
It's horrible.
And I know we get into details about that, why it's important. She's also talking about prison closures, up to 5 more prison closures. I mean, those are devastating to our local communities. We had a press conference in Albany this week.
It was a great press conference. People are mad. I mean, especially as you put in your statement, we talked about it on the program, I think, yesterday. How many days notice? 90 day.
90 days notification. The law requires a 1-year notification. For our closures, but the governor's seeking legislative approval for a 90-day closure. The legislature has a right to reject that, and I've urged my colleagues to reject it. Listen, a 1-year closure is difficult enough for a family, for a local community, because all those are hurt.
Right.
But to think you can uproot your family, find a new home, find new schools for your kids in 90 days, this adds insult to injury. And these are brave men and women who work a very dangerous job to keep us safe. And on that front point too, I would say, Frank, these prison closures coupled with the governor and the legislature taking away important disciplinary tools to restrict and eliminate the use, to segregate the most dangerous inmates for the rest of the population, in addition to not providing the tools and resources like adequate staffing, because many of our corrections officers are working double shifts, 16-hour shifts. They're getting vacation days taken away. So provide adequate staffing and things of that nature. Provide more tools like drug dogs and body scanners at every correctional facility to keep the drugs out, because we know the drugs are getting into our facilities. And on that point, the commissioner at the budget hearing said the primary reason for doing the closures is because of the staffing crisis, which makes no sense to me at all. At the press conference that came up, and I said, listen, we have a staffing crisis really in our healthcare, because how do they address that? You give recruitment bonuses, you give longevity and retention bonuses. Treat them with the respect they deserve.
You don't take away safety protocols. You don't threaten to give them the loss of a job in 90 days.
Right, and I mean the uncertainty about closures that plays in, and you shouldn't. All you're doing is really jamming more violent offenders into fewer facilities, and all this has really created a powder keg environment. So, and just for the statistic, I'll give you a long-term perspective and also a short-term perspective because of some of their policies. From 2011 to now, there's been about 25 prisons that have closed. The prison population has decreased from 56,000 to 32,000, but yet inmate on staff assaults are up 97%.
Wow.
Inmate on inmate assaults are up 217%, and contraband seizures are up 53%. So to make matters worse, several years ago, the legislature, one-party rule, wanted to do more, and they basically took away and restricted the use of segregated confinement for the most violent inmates, putting them so they get more attention. So since that, just from 2021 end of year to 2023 end of year this past year, assaults, inmate on staff assaults are up 42%, or an additional 500 assaults for a total of 1,600. That's a record high increase in assaults. But also, a lot of my colleagues, it's really about the inmates, and inmate on inmate assaults are up 90%, an increase of 1,000 over 2 years ago to over 2,100. I mean, this is a powder keg environment that's going on inside our correctional facilities. They don't want to do anything. They can't explain the violence, because what they're doing is they're cramming more violent offenders into fewer facilities. Even in our medium facilities, Frank, 65% of the inmates inside our medium correctional facilities are violent offenders. And we've seen since 2018, I believe the statistic is a tripling of the number of assaults inside our medium security facilities. So we have a violence crisis going on inside our correctional facilities. We have a staffing crisis going on inside our correctional facilities. When we question the commissioner, they don't have a plan. They say, yeah, with assaults, and then sometimes they even try to diminish it. Well, there's not a lot of assaults. At the press conference, I read off just several highlights of several assaults just over the past 2 months. Violent assaults, 12 here, 13 here, 6 there, 5 there. And it's really is this dangerous environment. What I do know is the data is clear. Prison closures coupled with taking away these important disciplinary tools to segregate the most violent inmates has led to this violence inside and also the staffing crisis. We shouldn't be shutting down any more prisons, especially with a 90-day notification. We should be treating our staff, our corrections and civilian staff as the professionals they are and have earned.
Yeah.
Treat them with respect. We should pay them better pay.
Exactly.
Better
I mean,
benefits.
imagine just saying that statement, Phil, that there's not that many assaults. What other profession can you say that?
They're not all violent or whatever. That is. But it's
that's unbelievable.
And the other thing is, I don't think you'd see other union workforces, other state workforces being treated the way that you see what's happening with our corrections officers. But it's a very issue that's very near and dear to my heart. We have people that work in our corrections facilities and nearby. In my actual district, I have 5 points. Willard was closed a couple years ago. Monterey was closed several years ago, which was a gem.
Yeah.
But now in my neighboring areas, we had Southport a couple years ago. I've had Livingston nearby. So it's just, there's so much uncertainty. These devastate these communities. It devastates these families, and they can say, well, no one's going to lose a job. I know people who were at Livingston closed, and they went to Gowanda, then Gowanda closed, then they went to Southport, and then Southport closed. And then we're going to say, now they're doing it, then they had to do it all over again. And then we're saying 90-day notice. Let's treat them, these are people.
Treat them with respect.
Treat them with respect.
And their families with respect.
They are, and it's mind-blowing to me.
I mean, the stress on the families in general, if your spouse is a corrections officer, and then you have to worry if you're going to have to keep moving around like you're in the Army, for heaven's sakes, at that point.
It's very, very, and they wonder why people don't want to go into the field or stay in the field because they see this. And there's been a lot of tradition where I've seen, with corrections officers, that sometimes families continue on in that generation. My brother-in-law, his father was a retired corrections officer. He went into corrections. So others, and it's just, it's a dangerous job, and people don't realize it. Like I always use the example of the Elmira Correctional Facility. People drive by that hill, and they don't want to know what's going on in there, but they want people in there to stay in there.
That's for sure.
And we always talk about the crime going on in our streets, but there's crime going on inside our correctional facilities. These violent inmates, and they don't care if they're in prison. They're not doing anything to support them, and we can't segregate them. It makes it more dangerous. It makes it more of a powder keg environment, and you're disrupting. There are some people in those facilities that just want to do their time and be left alone, and it's also had a negative impact on services that are provided to individuals in the correctional facilities because so much attention has to be provided to those. Probably 5% of the disruptive inmates, the violent inmates, because they have to have special services provided to them. It's taken away from services to individuals in the general population. It's taken away services to people like Honor Block. This has come up, and now it's brought up to the commission. He goes, I don't know anything about that. It's real. He mentioned something about Wi-Fi, and actually those individuals who are in the RRUs or the disruptive or more in those territories because they're not in segregated confinement, they're getting more time on tablets and free tablets,
of course.
So it's just time to really start treating our corrections officers and staff. They work a very dangerous job to keep us safe. They go in, they don't know what's going to happen, and now this uncertainty, and you wonder why. Let's treat them with respect. Let's not make them do mandated overtime, and you don't close down prisons to bring in more staff. All this is in 6 months after these closures happen, is just going to have this festering event, and then we're going to go through the same thing over and over again. So let's not close down any more prisons.
You're right. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
When accidents happen, you want your repair done right. Bring it to Nappy's, or if undrivable, have it towed right to us. It's your choice where to take your vehicle. Nappy's has a state-of-the-art paint booth and a new and improved repair shop. Let our friendly staff of specialists help you through the process and get it done right the first time. Commit to Nappy's, family-owned for 3 generations. Voted #1 auto body repair shop 17 times in the Twin Tiers.
Thank you for your business.
Insist on Nappy's Auto Body Done Right.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
Great drivers change lanes very fast, but with no outside mirrors. How come they don't crash? Introducing Angel View, the new wide-angle mirror that reduces blind spots. Angel View simply snaps over your car's rear view mirror, giving you a 160-degree view behind you. Ordinary rear view mirrors are small and flat, but Angel View has a huge mirror with curved glass. This convex shape allows you to see both blind spots with one glance. And with our Pro Edition special coating, it's anti-glare at night. Get your Angel View now for just $19.99 through this special offer. But wait, this may be your last chance to get Angel View at this low price. There is a strict limit of 2 Angel Views per order while supplies last. Order now.
Call 1-800-869-5346. That's 1-800-869-5346. Or visit getangelview.com. So call 1-800-869-5346 now.
In a few words, Urkel, glasses, nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on Big Fox.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Joining us in the studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, thanks for being on the show. I received this from a viewer. Not only is 90-day notice to close a prison disrespectful, the inmates have more rights than the corrections officers.
Oh, it really seems that way. I believe it. I mean, put it this way, just a simple thing. You know, the inmates get, some unlimited access to tablets and calls with the tablets. Mm-hmm. Our COs and staff, when they come into prisons, they cannot bring their phones inside the prison. Yeah. So
something even
and then you're there for 16 hours and double mandated shifts. So where's the respect? It's almost like you see this in all our criminal justice policies that are going on. Yeah. It seems like the scales of justice are tipping in favor of the criminal over law enforcement or crime victims and their families.
Look, we've been talking about it for a week. I don't want to get on a tangent here, but in New York City, where those illegal migrants beat up the police officers,
and they're released
no bail.
No bail. I mean, so what a collaboration of two failed policies. Yes. An unsecured border by this administration, and failing just let them come through the door. Yeah. And a sanctuary city and no bail. Yeah. I mean,
and now they're talking tough. Hochul saying deport them now. They're already, sources are telling the New York Post, 4 of them are already in California.
Of course. Yeah. Or the other state where they're welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, when she talks about it, it's just scary. It's disrespectful.
It is. It really is.
So it's really, really bad.
But I'm glad the story's been told, because it highlights all these failed policies. Right. It's a tragedy that it happened, but I do have to get to the side here. We're talking about Governor Hochul and her optics. That's something she thinks about a lot. School funding, I guess I was surprised by the cuts, because we've already seen the teachers union and others speaking out against it, and that seems to be someone she would want in her corner, and historically has had in her corner.
I will say this proposal in her budget, I really don't know who's giving her the political advice.
Yeah.
This has gotten uniform, Republican, Democrat, upstate, downstate, state, everybody. 213 legislatures are adamantly opposed to this provision in the budget. And what it is really, the foundation aid kind of brought the education funding to a certain levels, but we put there's a whole harmless language in the budget that said any school district would not receive less than the previous year, because there are, obviously we know every year salaries are increasing. Right. Pensions are increasing. Health insurance are increasing more than people thought. We did Tom O'Mara, Chris Friend, and I did a conference call with probably over 20 plus superintendents from the GST BOCES region the other night, and the health insurance are really concerns on the horizon. Look at some of the 30-40% increases. Wow. So where does that come from, other than the property taxpayer and the state aid? For some of these schools is really significant and helpful to them. Over half of my schools, I had a sheet, especially with 27 schools on. I don't represent all 27, but it's my area and surrounding areas are looking at cuts. Some are significant, 30% for Hammondsport. Wow. 18%, 12%, 16%. Some over $1 million. South Seneca, a very small school up in South Seneca County, over $1 million. Hammondsport over $1 million. I mean, this is significant funding. I mean, this is like to some extent 20% of the revenue that comes in. So you're talking about definitely staff layoffs, program cuts, and huge property tax increases. So there is that, and we're talking about just that amount of money. And I know this is going to sound, when I throw it around, it's like $180 million just to get to the hold harmless. In the context of a $233 billion budget.
I know it sounds bad, but
she's spending $2.4 billion for migrants, illegal immigrants, $700 million for a film tax credit for the Hollywood elite. Where are the priorities? And so it's really concerning.
It's so wrong-headed. I mean, if you just look at it in front of you, or as you're saying it, people, whatever you think about schools and how much money's going to them, people get upset when they get their school taxes like that. Still, like you said, $2.4 billion for migrants in New York City.
Right.
At the Hollywood tax cut. I mean, does anybody think that it's probably not better spent in the schools?
Exactly. And like I say
at
the
roads?
beginning. Yeah, exactly.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah, like I said, and budgeting is all about priorities. Yeah. And if we need to look at what those priorities are. The governor laid out her priorities. I mean, I don't think it's in line. It's certainly not in line with my priorities.
Right.
I think a lot of it, our priorities are different. So we talk about these things, like our schools, like our local roles, like individuals with developmental disabilities, which I hope we can talk about before we finish. But the roads, if you want to pivot into that.
Well, just one thing, I just don't understand the political nature of it, because it seems like Governor Hochul is kind of like when she does the public safety. She realized she made a mistake, right? And now she's not doing anything but making it sound like she is. It seems like this would have been a no-brainer that you don't cut school funding.
Exactly. And I think part of it is this basically a negotiating ploy on her end.
Yeah.
Now she can control the negotiating narrative because now she gets, the legislature, you're going to have to buy this back. If you want this, I want this. It's a give and take. And, I mean, they negotiate everything. It's like every little thing. I'm surprised they don't negotiate the times people can go to the restroom during the negotiations. They may.
Yeah.
But that just doesn't really make sense to me politically or
So you're right. There's something
logically
behind closed doors that we don't know, because that's a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk about chips, but why don't we take a break first? And we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Stay with us.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Attention, if you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and now have uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call now to see if you qualify. There's no fee unless we win your case.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. Not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount, and that's how easy it is. And I did this to my father. We were at home. 4 minutes, 34 seconds, completely gone.
My real true opinion is holy words I can't say on camera. This is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I could feel it just lifting my skin. It was amazing. It feels good. Feels great. Looks even better.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work for yourself after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Getting real video for a commercial used to be extremely expensive, but not anymore. WYDC TV Big Fox now offers the Twin Tiers amazing aerial video for your business. We do it with our state-of-the-art drone and commercially licensed aerial pilot. Beautiful HD aerial video and pictures custom-made for your commercial. Call or email now to advertise on Big Fox TV and let everyone see your business in a whole new way.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. We've got Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in the studio. So, Phil, I want to talk about CHIPS and the cut because, as I mentioned, Mayor Buckley was very upset about it. I know you're very upset about it. Tell us what we're going to be dealing with when it comes to CHIPS funding.
Well, again, the governor proposed a 10% or $60 million cut to the CHIPS program. And ironically, before the budget hearing with the transportation hearing, I had a minute to talk to the transportation commissioner outside the budget hearing, and I mentioned it during the hearing. I'm like, how can you cut the CHIPS program? She goes, we didn't. They're basically saying we didn't cut it. We're cutting the legislative ad. I'm like, but this is the budget that was adopted that the governor supported. So if you're giving them this much money last year, you're proposing taking away $60 million this year, that's a cut.
Yeah.
So please don't try to put your spin on it.
Yeah, no kidding.
But $60 million or 10% would be devastating to our local communities. It would be devastating to Hornell, where John is from and represents, Corning, Addison, every small village, town, county. And we've talked about this time and time again.
It seems like over and over we've talked about through the years.
And listen, the focus always seems to be on downstate and the MTA. And I get that the MTA is the lifeblood of the downstate transportation network. But CHIPS is the lifeblood of our upstate transportation network, especially for these smaller towns. In some instances, CHIPS is the only money some of these local communities have to spend to improve their local roads, bridges, and culverts. And from a statistical perspective, 87% of the roads in New York State are owned and maintained by our local municipalities. 52% of the 18,000 bridges are owned and maintained by our local municipalities, and 48% of the miles driven are driven on our local roads.
And I know you mentioned a million times, and I've stole your quote pretty much on it, but you think about that when the school bus goes over the bridges, and you look at you driving to work, and this again is another optics thing that I just don't understand, but it must be the focus, like you said, on the MTA.
Well, and I'm a supporter of the MTA. I mean, we have Alstom and Hornell, which is
of course,
is part of the mass transit industry. We have CAF and Elmira. I mean, so I'm supportive of the MTA, but what we want to have is parity. We used to have parity in the MTA capital budgets and the DOT capital budgets. 10 years ago, if it was $30 billion for one, it'd be $30 billion for the other one. The last MTA capital budget under one party control made $52 billion for the MTA and $32 billion for the DOT roads and bridges. And then only a portion of that can go to our local roads and bridges. Now, we've pushed over the past 12 plus years, since 2013, and the local highway superintendents come up and do a rally and lobby, and their success is because of them.
I like that.
And they talk about local roads matter, local roads are essential. So we drive that message home. But the other thing, inflation, it's hurting everyone, when you see it at the grocery store, at the gas pump, but it's hurting our local municipalities too. The construction inflation rate has increased, according to the Federal Highway Administration, by 58% over the past 30 months. So even when we give them that $60 million increase last year, now the governor wants to take that away. So it's eating right through that from an inflationary perspective. So all that means is you can't put in much investment into your local roads, bridges, and culverts, or you're going to have to rely more on the property taxpayer. It's just going to make it more dangerous. Every dollar you spend in the CHIPS program is one less dollar that comes from the local property taxpayer. Every dollar you invest in a CHIPS program saves $6 to $14 in long-term rehabilitation.
Right. I mean, where do they think that the people of New York are going to get the money for these type of things?
Isn't that? I mean, our local budgets are strapped enough, and then you look at the mandates coming through, whether it's for our schools, whether it's for our communities with the electric vehicle stuff. I mean, one of the
we'll definitely talk about that.
On the school bus, or the electric vehicle, can you imagine plowing roads with an electric plow? I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues, but there's a great concern over the fiscal situation of our communities. I mean, our local communities like John in Hornell does a great job managing the budget. He's done a tremendous job. They're doing, other communities are doing the same, and they're doing the best they can with the resources they have, because most of their funding comes from the property taxpayer. But the CHIPS program has been one of the most successful and important programs that we've established. Is funded through a program. Everyone benefits from it. New York City benefits from it. Long Island benefits from it. The Hudson Valley benefits from it. Well, we benefit from it upstate New. And it's really about a parity issue. Let's make sure our funding is prioritized. But the MTA budget has an increase for operational expenses and capital expenses. But now the governor's proposing a $60 million or 10% cut to our local communities for the fix their local roads, bridges, and culverts. It's unacceptable. Not only should it be restored, there should be a significant increase to the CHIPS program. That makes sense. That's, again, we're talking about our budgeting priorities, $233 billion budget. There should be more of an investment in CHIPS to keep our people safe, keep it more logical. It's an economic development thing, because when businesses come to local, they look for, local infrastructure. Our tourism industry supports all of that.
Right.
And businesses, they don't locate. It's nice to be along an interstate, but they locate in towns, villages, and cities.
Course.
So if the interstate's great, but the roads in the community aren't good, that's not a positive thing. And a public safety issue. I mean, our school buses,
right?
They go over bridges and every day.
Yeah.
I mean, so God forbid a road is out and it's going to impact them. It could be dangerous. We got to be proactive on this, not reactive.
Exactly. We're going to take another short break, and then when we come back, we got a lot more to cover. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
When accidents happen, you want your repair done right. Bring it to Nappies, or if undrivable, have it towed right to us. It's your choice where to take your vehicle. Nappies has a state-of-the-art paint booth and a new and improved repair shop. Let our friendly staff of specialists help you through the process and get it done right the first time. Commit to Nappies, family-owned for 3 generations. Voted #1 auto body repair shop 17 times in the Twin Tiers.
Thank you for your business.
Insist on Nappies, auto body done right.
Was your baby fed a cow's milk baby formula such as Similac or Enfamil? If so, your child may be entitled to significant financial compensation. Evidence shows that cow's milk formulas increase the risk of NEC in premature babies, causing severe harm and even death. If your child was born premature and suffers from NEC, intestinal perforations, sepsis, cerebral palsy, or died as a result, you may have the right to sue for significant financial compensation. Call now for a free case review.
You need a, but they're bulky, awkward, and never put the breeze exactly where you want it. Introducing my fold-away fan from Bell & Howell, the compact cordless fan that unfolds into your own personal wind machine and extends to nearly 4 feet high. Its lightweight, portable design makes it easier than ever to have a targeted breeze anywhere. Plus, this whisper-quiet fan has 3 separate speeds, making personalizing your comfort a breeze. My fold-away fan's rechargeable lithium battery lasts up to 10 hours, and it has enough power to blast a breeze to the other side of this room. Its unique telescoping stand allows you to place it on the floor, so the breeze will reach anywhere with ease. Then the whole thing folds away for easy storage. Get my fold-away fan from Bell & Howell for just 2 payments of $19.99. It comes with the USB cable to make charging fast and easy. My fold-away fan. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-349-4156. That's 1-800-349-4156, or go to myfoldawayfan.com.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano in that studio. So, Phil, you mentioned school funding cuts, and we've talked about the burden on taxpayers over and over during this interview. But then you add on to it the electric vehicle mandates that are coming. And where is this? Because I want to get into the energy policy in the budget in a second, but where does this money come from?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay, good. I thought... from me and you.
Basically, ultimately, it's going to come from the taxpayer, the ratepayer, the small business, the family. And I'm concerned it's just going to continue to lead to more of a nation-leading out-migration that we continue to see.
The cost of these buses is phenomenal.
The cost...
maintenance, everything.
First of all, most school buses, school districts, they purchase diesel school buses. And there's been emission changes to that make it cleaner.
Yes.
The average diesel school bus costs about $125, maybe $150 with some bells and whistles. The average electric school bus costs $400,000 to $450,000.
And they've all got to be replaced. It's not one at a time.
Got to be replaced. Yeah. Beginning in July of 2027, every school district, every new bus purchase has to be electric.
And we're going to blink, and it's going to be 2027.
Yeah, and believe me, that's a big issue. Not just a funding cut, but this mandate that's coming down the pipeline. This is really the mother of all unfunded mandates. And now you have to remember, it's not just the school bus purchases.
Right.
You have to do the electric infrastructure, charging infrastructure as part of it. Those are millions upon millions of dollars. I mean, there are 47,000 plus school buses in the state of New York. Let's just round it up to 50.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need more buses because of the range issues.
Of course.
50,000 school buses at 400,000 a pop. That's $20 billion.
Yeah.
Then you talk about the charging infrastructure. and it's not just that. Horsehead School District had told us previously, they've been told by NYSEG, just to bring the power from the grid into the school would cost the taxpayers would be on the hook, property taxpayers of the Horsehead School District.
Right.
$10 million. So this is going to be similar everywhere.
Yeah.
And the utilities don't know if they can bring this to these schools.
They're
so
ready
they
for it.
The grid's not ready for it. The build out is a massive build out. But this is the mother of all unfunded mandates. And with the schools, you're going to need more school bus drivers. There are issues that you don't even think about. They're not thinking about anything. They're saying got to get the EV mandate. What about half days? These vehicles go out on routes. They come back to charge.
That's a great point.
Pick up.
Yeah.
What if there's an emergency or something like that? You have to go out. What about now the transportation of these students going to state championships in Syracuse or Albany?
Yeah.
I mean, I know in February the wrestling state championships happen up in Albany. Our state championships happen in Syracuse. They go in different parts of the state. Steuben County is 1,400 square miles.
Yeah.
These range issues are significant. When you get the air conditioning on or the heat on, that depletes the battery. We saw what happened out in Chicago with those Teslas. I don't know if you saw the story where they all died and they were waiting. Some were waiting around 8 hours to be charged, and then they didn't charge because it was so long. We have some cold, really temperatures here in New York State, up in the Adirondacks in Western New York. It happens here. That can happen too. What happens if those school buses can't charge or aren't ready to go out? Then what do you do with the kids? There's a safety and health issue with this, and also the fires. These EVs, the lithium-ion batteries, catch on fire on a regular basis. We see them with the scooters in New York City. We see them with visuals of electric vehicles. They blow up and explode. And when they catch on fire, they burn hot, and they burn long, and they burn very, very quickly. So to think our kids are on these school buses where they can catch up on flames, there's going to be no time for them to get out. So I'm very, very concerned about it. And of course, with the batteries, I've talked about this over and over again. If I can mention up, the cobalt is used to produce and make lithium-ion batteries. 70% of the cobalt is extracted into the Democratic Republic.
We talked about this last time.
There's child labor, well documented.
It's sickening.
They die. These mining collapses are dying. They're being maimed. They're being paralyzed. And there's some estimates 35 to 40,000 kids in the Democratic Republic of Congo are going in these mines and mining. And it's polluting waters and rivers and streams over there when they do the lithium mine. So it's almost like, and
as long as it's not us,
Commissioner Sagas, so the DEC Commissioner this week, and then we talked about the whole energy policy. I said to the Commissioner, this is really not an energy transition; it's a train wreck.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm concerned about. It's almost like if kids aren't dying or being maimed over here, it's okay.
Exactly.
As long as we're going to get to our clean energy goals. They mentioned, we got a possible cobalt mine out west. Well, the environmentalists aren't going to let that happen. They're not going to let lithium extraction happen here because they don't want it here. They want it someplace else because the environmentalists, they don't want it there, but then someplace else, it's okay as long as we're meeting our goals. And I talked about, listen, I know you don't like oil rigs or fracking, natural gas fracking wells, but I don't see any children working on them.
No, exactly right. We received this from a viewer. How can we protest this crazy bus idea? I'd prefer not to pay for them. Me too.
Well, the listener brings up, or watcher brings up a good question because school bus purchases have to be approved by the voters. If the voters don't approve the school buses, they can't do it. So a lot of questions are coming out like, well, are they going to mandate it?
Right.
And then you just have to buy them? I mean, so...
That's a great point.
I mean, the school, I'd say to call right now, I'd get on the phone with Governor Hochul, let's say, and get on, obviously I'm on your side.
Yeah, right.
I'm America's friend, agree.
Yeah.
But call Governor Hochul's office. We got to blast them and say, we need to pump the brakes on this thing. Right. And the other thing with this issue, and I said to the commissioner, we're making our school districts go first.
Yeah.
They have to have their entire fleet converted by 2035.
Yeah.
Heavy duty fleet. And they have to meet benchmarks beginning in 2027. There are no benchmarks for the state of New York other than by 2040, not 2035.
Right.
Their heavy duty and medium fleet have to be converted. So why not? How about the state go first?
Yeah.
And show they
See
can
how
do
it
it.
goes.
Make sure they work out all the kinks and problems instead of. And the commissioner goes, "I want us to go out all together." I go, "What? We're not. You're not doing that. You're not proposing. You're asking the schools to go 5 years before and starting in 2027." And so I put in legislation with Tom O'Mara that Chris Friend has supported that would basically stop this and say, okay, if you're going to make this move forward, make it be 2045 when the public, they have to start, for new vehicles, starts to add new purchase. Or the school districts don't have to do it until the state completes their conversion of their fleet.
Yeah.
You have to do a cost benefit. How about a cost benefit analysis? Show how much it's going to cost. How about partnering with the New York Independent System Operators, which manages the grid, the utilities, and the Public Service Commission to say, can the grid handle this, and can we handle this build out? Because I talked to one engineer who's working with the school district. They're trying to prepare ahead, and they've been told by the utilities that you're not going to have power for this site for 7 years. I mean, but you're going to spend money to build it.
Yeah.
And I just think this is a runaway freight train.
It really
and
is.
And that's why I said to the commission, I'm like, not that we can't move towards clean energy goals, but we got to do it in a rational way. We can't jeopardize the existing energy infrastructure. I know I'm kind of pivoting here, obviously.
Yeah.
I apologize. But we can't jeopardize the entire energy infrastructure that we have in place that's reliable, that's affordable.
You're right.
And say we're going to move to this full electrification for school buses, for homes. And basically it's a plan to really dismantle the entire natural gas infrastructure supply and delivery system that we have in place.
Yeah.
And it's a move towards full electrification to take away the choice, consumer choice on how you heat your home.
It's just wrong.
How you cook your food, how you dry your clothes, how you power your buildings, and the car you drive. Taking away energy choice, energy freedom. And it's just going to lead to massive increases of the rates. I mean, we talked about just to convert your home over from natural gas to full electrification using heat pumps. And there's 3 studies. Basil, Sagos, and Dorian Harris, an own study with the Climate Action Council said it would cost $20,000 to $50,000. The Consumer Energy Alliance said it would cost a family over $35,000. In Western New York, they did one $40,000 to $50,000. Wow. For heat pumps and all these, you have to deal with not just the heat pumps. You have to deal with the shell of your property. You have to deal with the charging circuit improvements. What low or moderate income person can afford that and would want to do that? But you take away the choice.
It's like just another fee to stay here in New York.
Right.
Thank you.
And it's and 60% of the people in New York State heat their homes with natural gas.
Right.
40% of our generation. So we're going to stop it. And okay, we can make a transition over time. We got to do it smartly. But we're not. We're rushing full speed ahead. And when we talk about roads and bridges, you do not tear down a bridge before you build a new one.
That's a great point.
But what we're seeing happening is they're tearing down, they want to stop and dismantle our whole energy infrastructure system before we get the new infrastructure in place. Because right now our total generating capacity in New York State is 41 gigawatts. That's wind, solar, hydro, natural gas, and nuclear. 41.
Yeah.
The massive build out that's needed according to NISO by 2040 is 124 gigawatts up to that's tripling our capacity. And we haven't put, I think, maybe 12 to 15 gigawatts online since like 1998.
Yeah.
And that's a massive, and we're not even talking about the reliability factor. They said that from a reliability perspective, we need 27 to 45 gigawatts. And for the watcher, 1 gigawatt is the equivalent of powering like 750,000 homes. So we need 27 to 45 gigawatts of dispatchable emission-free resources. Remember, our total is generating in New York right now with everything is 41.
Right.
We need 27 to up to 45 of dispatchable emission-free resource generation. Wind and solar doesn't count. That's not dispatchable. Not 24/7. Nuclear, natural gas is 24/7, but we're not letting them count.
No.
And I don't know why not nuclear, because that's clean. But so the NISO said the technology does not exist. The resource, they don't know what it is, but yet we're shutting down. We're denying air permits for natural gas power plant construction, which what the budget says we don't want to put more approvals for those. We're denying renewals for existing natural gas power plants. So we're tearing down that bridge before we build a new one on our energy side. And that's just, it's bad policy. It's not safe. I mean, you saw the storms in Buffalo last year. People will die. I don't want to sound alarmist, but people are going to die. Electrification is not going to work with electric vehicles. And I think relying on wind and solar to heat your home is not a reliable thing.
We got to take a short break, but from a viewer, the electrification of things is being handled the same way they did the whole pot situation. That's a pretty good point. And pull the trigger.
Smoke, really.
Exactly. And pull the trigger for things like this, for the sound bites without researching the consequences. That's a good point. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Wow. You found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Sunday on Fox. The Kings of the Lanes lay everything on the line for a major.
Tuck it! He's got it! There it is! Belmo adds to his legacy. Anthony Sorensen, he's got it.
This is where names become legends and legends become champions.
He's the greatest!
The U.S. Open Finals, Sunday at 3:30 Eastern on Fox.
Something with a diamond in it.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
It's in the name. Name a low-calorie food you might make your edible underwear out of.
Salmon. Watch it weeknights. Share it the next day.
Wild caught Norwegian teriyaki.
Share in the fun. Weeknights on Family Feud.
7 and 7:30 on Big Fox.
We are back, frankly speaking, here on WYDC TV. Big Fox Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is our guest. Phil, you mentioned this earlier, and we glanced over because we want to get to it, which was developmental and intellectual disabilities. I know you've always been a champion and outspoken on this. Could you tell us what we're seeing currently with the budget? Is there any updates, anything?
Nothing positive from my
really?
perspective. I mean, I go back to the fact that budgeting is all about priorities.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not taking care of our most vulnerable citizens,
Right.
what does that say about us as a state? When I talk about our most vulnerable citizens, I think about individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
These are individuals who were really dealt a bad hand in life
Right.
and no fault of their own, but they need services, they need caretakers, they need direct support professionals who are tasked with making sure their quality of life and quality of care are addressed. I had served as a direct support professional many years ago. My sister dedicated her whole life to working with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It was such a rewarding experience for me, and I always said we need to make sure this is a priority, and the budget isn't doing that. I mean, we're trying hand over fist to get more support. We talk about the minimum wage increases, which has created wage suppression. You see people at McDonald's or Burger King
Right.
can make 17, 18, 19 bucks an hour, but yet our direct support professionals who are working for our local ARCs, like Stu Ben Arc, Shamong, Skylar Arc, are struggling. And those individuals who work in those jobs, those direct support professionals, are really responsible for the quality of care, the quality of life, our most vulnerable citizens. I mean, and we've seen some of these homes shutting down because they're not doing enough to recruit and to put people in those jobs. We need to support those wages. And the other thing, we need to make sure that we're not cutting Medicaid reimbursement. So even when we do get wage support, the government has come back around on the backside and taken away through Medicaid reimbursement. Things like all of us who are watching this show or listening to this show, you know, going to the movies, going to a game, going to the mall, we take that for granted, but that's a treat for these individuals, and these individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities can't enjoy those things if we don't have the direct support professionals to care for them and watch over them. And these individuals really do it because they love the job, they care about the individuals they're serving, but that only goes so far when you can't take care of your
But you
family
still
because the
got-
wages aren't competing,
Right.
and
You
you
still
see
have to
more and more people.
survive.
And then you have to shut down those facilities, and it's really kind of a double whammy because, you know, for families, I've talked to a number of families who are getting older and they're worried about who's going to take care of my son or my daughter who's disabled after I go, and who's going to advocate for them. So I'm committed to continuing to advocate for them. If we're not making sure this is a priority about funding our direct support professionals who are caring for them, what does that say for us as a state? If we aren't providing them the resources they need, because in the comparison, especially when you look at the state support system, there's more support for the state support homes and state support services, but not the not-for-profits.
Yep.
And that's hard. There's no comparison, so we're seeing those leave. We need to do more aggressively to support, particularly our nonprofit associations like the ARCs, the pathways that care for our most vulnerable citizens. That needs to be a priority. If we're not doing that, that does not say enough about us as a state about dealing with those individuals who are most vulnerable.
Phil, it's hard to believe we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, we'll be not right back. We'll be back on Monday at 7 with Frankly Speaking. Tune in then.
bank. Invite a bunch of friends, then fill the infield like a rock concert. Mix in some superstar power and turn them loose. A 500-mile all-out fight for NASCAR's biggest prize. That's the Great American Race. The Daytona 500, February 18th. And don't miss the Clash February 4th on Fox.